name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Peace be with you.
Now with us.
May we be seated as the President of the Catholic Bishops' Conference of Liberia, Most Reverend Anthony Adboa, welcomes us.
A representative of His Excellency Joseph Jumabwaka, President, Republic of Liberia, other government officials and politicians here, Your Excellencies, Archbishops and Bishops.
The weekend of the 4th and 5th of May 2024 will go down in the annals of history of the Catholic Church in Liberia for so many reasons. First, it marked the only third consecration of an Archbishop of the Metropolitan Archdiocese of Monrovia in the long and enviable history of the Roman Catholic Church, having been in Liberia for over a century ago.
On behalf of CATICO, that is the Catholic Bishop Conference of Liberia, filled with profound sense of joy, hope, and gratitude, I welcome you all here on this momentous occasion as we gather to celebrate the Episcopal ordination of Monsignor Gabriel Blamo Snosio Jubwe as the third shepherd of the Catholic Archdiocese of Monrovia.
Secondly, it ended a protracted and anxious wait of the religious and lay faithful of the Church as to who would follow in the coveted path of Archbishop Emeritus Michael Pakla Francis and Archbishop Louis Jerome Ziegler to assume such an episcopal seat. And thirdly, it has lit a light of hope and dynamism among Liberian Catholics across the globe that a new chapter in the Church's history in Liberia is about to begin. So I had the esteemed privilege to sit with the newly ordained Archbishop, His Grace Most Reverend Dr. Gabriel Blamo Snosio Jubwe.
Remember, I belong to certain generation. I worked with Michael Francis, and I saw the different faces of the church, of the country. And Michael Francis, being my mentor, is like the unfinished agenda of Michael Francis. And of course, it will adapt to the realities of today.
Welcome to this special feature. My name is Ledgerhood Rennie, your presenter.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
40 years as a priest, and finally, you've been named the Archbishop of the Metropolitan Archdiocese of Monrovia. First, tell us, how did you receive the news of your ascendancy to the Archbishopric?
First, it came as a very, very big surprise. I wasn't really expecting it, so it was an emotional moment. Is it true? Very first time when I was asked, because you had to be asked, I was lack of words. I was speechless. I needed time to go back to digest, reflect. Is it true? Is it? And up to now, it comes with a lot of emotions. After 41 years, and with all different kinds of experiences, including desert experience, one will say, well, perhaps it's God. He wants it this time. So the only thing I say, once He has brought me to this far, He will surely lead the process and lead the way, give the direction. So in humility, relying on God's help, that's how I accepted. But it was not an easy decision. It was not made at that instant at all. It's the implication, why me? Why this time? Why those questions?
The priesthood is a sacred vocation that many young boys growing up would hardly think of venturing into, because it requires a lifetime commitment and dedication of his mission of faithful service to God Almighty and His people. Young Gabriel was an exception.
When I had the urge as altar server, serving the church, I was, of course, in my teens, say 12, 13, 14, maybe thereabout. And each time we served Mass, and the priest will, during the elevation of the consecrated host, there was this burning desire. My whole attention, my whole focus, my whole person to be like the priest as, lifted the consecrated host. And I couldn't understand it. I was drawn to the Eucharist. I wanted to be like my parish priest then. And that's how I started developing, and I was afraid to even say it to my dad. You know. I mean, knowing the kind of person I was, always the fighting type. You know. So when I told him about his intention to be priest, he thought something must be wrong. He said to me, "Look, go back, go and sleep. Tomorrow, let me see if you will come back and say the same thing." You know. So the following day I went back. Then he realized, something is growing. There's a change, in him. That was the first time I heard that dad say he too wanted to be priest.
His dad, Michael Simplicius Jubwe, a devout Catholic and Liberian diplomat living at the Liberian embassy in Nigeria then, began the initial steps to get his son into the minor seminary.
Mind you, in those days, as in the embassy, we were in Lagos, and he said, "Look, I know you are in Form 4. You only have 1 year to complete secondary school. It will be better you stop and go to the minor seminary, St. Teresa's minor seminary in Okere in Ibadan." At that time, Liberian students, seminarians were sent out to Nigeria, to Ghana, the like of Tipo, Mark Francis. So in Nigeria, you had Edward Jackson, you had Louis Ziegler, you had all of them were on that side. So they used to come to the embassy to renew their passport and all. So my dad wanted me to go and start from Form 1.
Okay.
That's how I lost one whole school year.
But the young Gabriel Blamo Jubwe didn't get to begin his anxiously awaited journey to the priesthood at the St. Teresa's Minor Seminary in Okere, Ibadan, Nigeria. His entrance results, though positive and mailed to the Liberian embassy, never got to be delivered to his dad. And by the time his dad had made inquiries with the rector of the seminary about his son's results, the time had elapsed.
What? But where was the letter? Only to find out when my dad asked the embassy, Liberian embassy there, the messenger to find out, "Do you ever remember picking from the post office any letter addressed, in my father's care and addressed to?" He said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I thought I told you." He said he saw the letter. He picked the letter. He had my name, but in care of my dad, the embassy. But between the post office and the embassy, he didn't know what
Happened to the letter.
What happened to the letter. And that was how I didn't get to go to the minor seminary. I would have left from Form 4 to go and start. It's like you're going to start from 9th grade or something. You say, or 10th grade. So that was a strange thing. Then, of course, we were in touch with, in Liberia, with the vocations director, Father Jim Burr. The SMA, the OME was the vocation director. When we contacted him, he said, "But there is no need to go to minor seminary. There is no need. Let him finish the Form 5 and then come back to Liberia and enter the college, seminary in Banga." Because at the time they had opened the major seminary. So after GCE, all of that, 76, that's how I came. Back to Liberia and went to Banga.
Okay.
And of course, Bishop Francis had, in 76, he was named Bishop of Monrovia, so Monsignor Tipo continued as the rector. That's how I started my journey. So there have been all kinds of things, how did I get to want to be priest? Was it me? Was it God? God's hand was really leading. So that's how that whole story started about becoming priest.
When you look back 40 years of your priestly ordination, and today now you're the Archbishop of the Archdiocese of Monrovia, is it a choice well made, or in reflection, well, perhaps maybe I would have done something else in life?
First, there has never been, there will never be a regret.
Okay.
Yes, before, I decided to become a priest before I felt the urge. Of course, my dad, as a diplomat, you wanted to be a diplomat, or you wanted to be a lawyer, you wanted to be a doctor. We had all of that, before. But with 40 years being priest, if I die today, I come back, I will still want to be priest, even better one. So I discovered my whole life, this was the life, that I was meant to live, and I love it, and I can never leave it. So there's no regrets. I will continue to be. Even of course, when we die, we still be priests.
Most Reverend Jubwe is not oblivious of the role of an archbishop within the Catholic Church and the enormous responsibilities that lie ahead, given the state of the local church and Liberia in general, where he will be shepherding his flock.
God is time. This is the time. Yes, it's this kind of time requires a certain kind of leadership. And why this time and why me was I set aside for this period? I think there's a lot of truth in it. So the challenge, after having seen the country, the church, the role of the church, and over the years working in different capacities, different responsibilities, in the church, helping to establish institutions, it is more challenging now because we have to look from within, a reform from within the church itself. We have to. It's going to be a real struggle. We've been a church in transition, so you've had people set in their ways. You have to build institutions, the structure. When these things are dismantled, to put it back, to get back on track, it's not going to be an easy thing. And that's why I think perhaps God prepared. So this perhaps is his time, is the time to be able to do what he has perhaps prepared me for, set aside for this kind of period.
Where would you be drawing your inspiration from to do what you think you want to do?
Remember, I belong to a certain generation. I worked with Michael Francis, and I saw the different faces of the church, of the country. And Michael Francis being my mentor is like the unfinished agenda of Michael Francis. And of course, adapt to the realities of today. At that time, we were faced with different kinds of despotic regime. If you take when Michael Francis became bishop at the time, vicariate of Monrovia, before he became in 1981 the archdiocese. Remember, you had in 1977 the very first pastoral letter he issued, the issue of corruption. And then in 1980, look at the challenge. We started seeing traits of violence, and then came up with the challenge of the 80s. So you're talking about with the experience of the change of regime, the military regime coming in. So Michael Francis being head of the church, the formation of Liberian Council of Churches, so he was not working alone. And faced with this despotic, tyrannic regime, violence was showing its face, violation of human rights. The church had to take a posture, and the posture of the church, not just be a compass, but to be the voice of the people, voice of the voiceless, to be able to denounce violence. Yeah, of course, the states, it's not the church. The church, there is a separation of church and state, but the church, the church was there to point, you must go this is the way you should go. So the church has that moral responsibility to be able to point the right way. It has been the prophetic role of the church. So seeing all of that at that time, and then see how far we have come. We're dealing with certain issues today, okay? And the issue of war crime, I see myself as a continuation of a generation of Michael Francis. We need to.
Quite a big shoes to fill,
Yeah.
because you work as Vicar General on His Grace Archbishop Francis the late, so it's quite a big shoes to fill.
It is quite, and times are different. Realities, of today, the context in which we find ourselves, we live, may be different from that of yesterday, but the response that is required in response of the church to these realities, to these challenges, to this issue, remain the same. The church yesterday is the church today, the church tomorrow. There's no change at all. So I'm sure with that kind of guidance to say, look, it stood for peace, for justice, it stood for perhaps in a different context today, we need to also work collaboratively with our other denominations, other faith, just as we used to do, so that concerted effort, it would not be a lone voice anymore. And today is not like yesterday. You got, it's an evolving democracy, and you have outlets now that people can express themselves, which we didn't have at that time. So the church's role now will be different in approaching, issues. It will be like constructive engagement of those who have the mantle of power, to constructively engage them, to be able to be their father, that everyone can come to, to give direction, to give proper guidance, because it is necessary, so that we are not enemies. The church shouldn't be seen as enemy of government, enemies of no. It's not going to be that way at all.
When you talk about the continuation of the legacy of the late Archbishop Michael Francis, will we now see more pastoral letters coming out, more statements on national issues, a reinvigorated JPC as it used to be under the leadership of Archbishop Francis, those sort of things?
First, at the time, we were putting up this structure from the archdiocesan level. Okay, we started as Archdiocese of Monrovia, but then the structure expanded, the structure at the capital level, national level. So that also had its own challenges that made the particular Archdiocese of Monrovia, that which used to be the voice, kind of suppressed. So you have more of a national office responding to issues at that level. Okay. You see, so we have to work still within the capital level at the same time.
That's the Catholic Bishops Conference of Liberia, where most Liberians,
exactly.
may not know, non-Catholics may not know.
Yeah. So at the same time, this is the metropolitan see, okay, of the province of Monrovia. So obviously there will be coming from the archdiocese, from the archbishop, then also because once the archbishop speaks, the other bishop is speaking, because it's metropolitan. Okay. So obviously, we have to have these things will be pastoral letters, and you have the different organs of capital, of the offices, the JPC. So they too will be addressing these issues, and when you mentioned that, of course, at that time we had the radio, first radio ESCM, okay, transition to Radio Veritas. We were just, earlier on we're talking about, the incident at, Radio ESCM. As a matter of fact, when it was burned down, and then we kind of moved temporarily to Mamba Point, and I told the Archbishop, I said, it was burned down because of speaking, he was speaking the truth. So let's give it Radio Veritas. So look at the years, the focal point. It has changed because Radio ESCM, Radio Veritas, now you have Radio Maria. So that's why people don't feel the impact, because at the time it was Radio Veritas, very more, to do. But this new arrangement, Radio Maria, is much more of a spiritual thing. Okay, it's not really 100% to say Archdiocese of Monrovia. That's why people are feeling the less impact.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's much more of evangelization, it's much more, so the focus, kind of changed. So that's one of the
But would you be looking into that too? I mean, as part of your mission, your vision to, about change?
We have
about reform, because you used the word reform.
Oh, yes. We have to find a way around it, because the Radio Veritas was the mouthpiece, was the, so what would be now the role of Radio Maria? So we got to go back to the drawing board and see what is possible.
Archbishop Jubwe was not coy when he spoke about the current state of the Archdiocese with regards to its evangelization mission, the biggest part of the church's undertakings, and its accompanying social programs of education, health, and charity.
What we have, how effective, are we in terms of fulfilling our mission? Are we reaching the people? Are we preaching this gospel? Are we, you talk about, our parishes, they've been wrong. Our stations, the agents of evangelization, our priests, our catechists, our religious people who are part of, to help us to be the hands and the feet, to preach the gospel, to our people. Okay, now we also got to sit down to look. Have we been fulfilling this? Where our strength, our weaknesses. So where our weaknesses, we need to identify to be able to strengthen. So when you look at the teaching apostolate, okay, which is education, we got to look at a reform. For the past 20 years, how have we been? What is the situation now? Our school is meeting the needs, or the fulfilling the mission of the church, which is Catholic education, Catholic identity. We have to evaluate. So it's going to be a period of looking. Let's evaluate this and let's see, because the time of Maria Francis, the development, it was different. The environment was different. In our schools, we had the teaching of, we had catechism in those days. Cathedral school, the Sister Marie. You have people preparing kids, for the reception of the sacraments. Mind you, it seemed to have gone.
Yeah.
So what do? We need to now look. What is the service the church is called to give in terms, in regard to education? Are we like, public school or ordinary private school or so? But we are Catholic school. We need to go back to our Catholic identity to be able to give that Catholic education to form the whole person in the image and likeness of Christ. We have to ask ourselves, what has gone wrong? Are we fulfilling this? Then that will determine how we're going to respond to the challenges of today. Then you take the apostolate with the health. It's another area that we've been providing in health delivery services to the people of Liberia. Okay, how effective our structures, our institutions, are we meeting the needs of the poor? Okay, we have to go back to look. What can we do to improve, to better our outreach program? We used to have those in those days, primary health care, primary health service in the villages, this and that. We got to go and see where others cannot reach. Can we reach there? Then our social services, our charitable caritas, and all of this to meet the needs of the poor. In this context, to help people to be independent. To help people to be able to stand on their feet. Mind you, we no longer get the carnal assistance in those days at that time. Donors fatigue now. We have to now rely on ourselves. We have to rely from within. So it's a church now that got to be a self-reliant church, which Maria Francis, was working towards. The structures were put there. Okay, self-reliant church, self-ministering church. Okay, self-propagating church. We have to be able to do that. So in terms of the social services we render, how do we generate the resources to be able to help, people in need?
In all of this, Your Grace, how do the lay organizations within the church and the professional laity of the church come into your playbook to ensure that you're successful in your mission and vision?
First, the bulk of the church, the laity. Without the laity, you can't talk about a viable church. So we have strong lay people who are professionals, and we've been so lucky. The past government before, if you look at the percentage of those who serve in public offices, are Catholics. Okay, so we have we cannot abandon them. So we now bring these people on board. Let us reason together. Let us together find a way that we can be more relevant to the Liberian people to fulfill our mission in the social, and the different sphere of the Liberian society. So the laity is a very strong force that we need the laity. You can't do without the laity. So as far as I am concerned, by now they will understand that that's where I'm going. I'm coming to them. If I have started with them, the lay people. The future is bright, The future is bright. Once you work with the lay people, you make them to feel they are part of the church. They're part of without them, in every sector. We are good to go. You can't leave them out. So I'm prepared to get them more involved than ever.
The Catholic Church in Liberia has over the years earned a reputable brand for being the voice of the voiceless, vocal on many societal ills and issues, especially involving the government of the day. So what kind of relations will the new Archbishop seek to foster with the government and other denominations when it comes to such matters?
The first thing we must realize, yes, the church is the church. Okay. The state is the state. Yeah, there is dichotomy. But the church has a moral obligation to be able to impact positively the political life. When you say the church, who are they? Are they not the same people out there, the same people in the church? They are the same people. So there's no way you can divorce it. You can't. Otherwise, the church will fail in its mission. Part of the mission of the church is to be relevant, to be able to be there, to be able to point. That's why in the Old Testament, all of that is the prophetic mission. The government also, they were never left as if they have become God themselves. No, the church stands for God that we believe in, and in a world that we live, if you have a state that makes itself like the imperial state, see itself as a god, then there will be a problem. We will clash. There is no government that is in this world here that will claim to be absolute, to say it must be worshipped and all of that. No. The role of the religion, and the good thing about it in this country, yes, it's a secular state, we agree. But we always talk about, a religion within the context of Islam, Christianity, and all of this, which is, is to our advantage. So we should be able to bring to bear the religious force, the religious values, so that it will find a place within the social context, political context. You cannot divorce it. You can't. So our role then as a church is to work in partnership along with the government, with the state, so that to help the state to fulfill its role, to cater to the needs of the people. That's the role of the church. When the state fails to fulfill its duty, its obligation to the people, then there will be a clash. The church is there to point. You say, that's your obligation, that's your duty. Someone has to say this, to them. So that's the kind of thing. We are partners. At the same time, we call the spade a spade. The church stands by itself. The church answers to God alone. Okay? And the church is the mouthpiece of God. As a matter of fact, is the sign and sacrament of Christ's presence, in the world. So this church is not just human, but rather divine. So you still need that divine presence that will constantly be a constant reminder to those who govern that they are not gods. They must submit, they must acknowledge to a higher authority, and that higher authority is God. That's what the church stands for.
Under the Interreligious Council mechanism, we've seen the church under Archbishop Francis the late play a very pivotal role. What would be your style, in leadership with respect to dealing with other denominations, other religions?
The good thing about it, I haven't been schooled in the school of my Francis, the like of Sheikh Kafumba, Roland Diggs, Bishop Kula, who is still alive. All these people that our mentors that we were under them, they pass on the baton to us. We saw that it is important that we work together at the level of Council of Churches as well as inter-religious council. So obviously, I'm going to continue that. That's the way to get. That's the way we're going to go to ecumenical level and at the inter-religious council level together, so that we can speak with one voice.
Archbishop, before I let you go, what final message do you have to all Catholics around the world, in Liberia especially, listening to you, especially those Catholics that are from the Archdiocese of Monrovia?
To all our Catholics, and the first is to be able to appreciate them for the level of support so far. And since the announcement of this appointment, it's been overwhelming, the response of the people, both within, even non-Catholics, both within Liberia, outside Liberia. And to them, I would say to continue to the prayer, and then to be ready so that together we can foster and promote the mission of Christ. That's all of us. Every Catholic is obliged by virtue of our baptism and the confirmation. So they should be ready now to help us, to foster that. And they will be the hands and the feet of ensuring that in the political sphere, in the social sphere, and the business sector, that as Catholics, they will impact the society in a very positive way to bring about that change that is necessary to make Liberia better. We expect them to be better Catholics. The involvement of everyone, because an archbishop is archbishop for the whole of Liberia, everyone, for all persons, not for a segment of people. No, 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 no. This archbishop is father of everyone, father of all.
In the name of the Father,